Доброе утро, уважаемые дамы и господа. Я рад вас приветствовать в рамках нашего вебинара. У кого-то утро, у кого-то уже вечер. Я только что созванивался с одним нашим слушателем, у него ночь, поэтому я благодарю всех, кто присоединился к нашему вебинару. Представлюсь, я Дмитрий Гришанков, руководитель Ассоциации составителей рейтингов, Дмитрий Кабалинский, мой заместитель, Ксения Зиновьева, руководитель нашего международного направления. Ксения поможет мне с переводом.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are happy that you're here with us, and we are happy that we are here with you. We will be hosting today the webinar, and this is Dmitry Grishenkov, the head of advisor to the President of the Russian Union of Rectors and Director General of REICS. Dmitry Kabalinsky, his Deputy Director General, and I am head of the external communications of the Moscow project.
Сегодняшний вебинар посвящен шестому выпуску Московского международного рейтинга при миссии университета. Рейтинг составляется Ассоциацией составителей рейтингов по инициативе Российского союза ректоров. И Союз ректоров определяет стратегические цели рейтинга и контролирует качество работы. Однако Союз ректоров полностью изолирован от оперативной работы над рейтингом, и это продиктовано заботой о минимизации конфликтов интересов.
Today's webinar will be about the 6th edition of the Moscow International University Ranking 3 University Missions. This ranking is made by the Association of Ranking Makers and Compilers and other evaluation makers, and it has been made by the initiative of the Russian Union of Rectors. The RSR defines strategical goals of the ranking and controls the quality of the ranking, but the Rectors Union is isolated from the operative work and organization of work of the ranking, because this is due to the minimization of conflicts of interests.
Результаты рейтингов мы, как обычно, по традиции опубликовали в конце августа. После этого мы получили большое количество вопросов, причем не только от российских университетов, но и от зарубежных университетов, а также от посольств.
Results of our rankings is traditionally published by the end of August. However, after this, we received a lot of questions, and not only from Russian universities, but also from foreign universities as well as embassies.
Это свидетельство того, что вузы все чаще ориентируются на результаты нашего рейтинга при принятии стратегических решений, а абитуриенты используют рейтинг как один из критериев при выборе университета. А посольства, они используют рейтинг, ну, по крайней мере, некоторые из них, мы с ними контактируем, используют этот рейтинг для формирования рекомендаций органам власти своих стран по направлению студентов в российские вузы. И на вебинар мы пригласили представителей более 80 посольств, более 80 стран.
This interest of foreign universities and embassies shows that universities of the world are often looking to the results of our ranking when making strategical decisions, and graduates from schools who want to study at universities use the ranking as one of the criteria for university choice. As for embassies, they use rankings when forming recommendations to authorities of their own countries when they are sending students to Russian universities. And to this webinar, embassy officials of over 80 embassies have been invited.
Теперь о рейтинге. В шестом выпуске рейтинга, который вышел 30 августа, представлены 1800 университетов из 102 стран. Таким образом, наш рейтинг стал наиболее представительным рейтингом университетов в мире.
In the sixth edition of our international ranking, that was published on August 30th, have been 1,800 universities from 102 countries. This makes our ranking the most representable ranking in the world.
Главная особенность рейтинга «Три миссии» в том, что, как следует из названия, помимо традиционных миссий университета, которые рассматривают наши коллеги по цеху, это образование, наука, в наш рейтинг учитывает также третью миссию – взаимодействие университета с обществом, ну или полезность университета для своей территории, для своей страны.
The main distinctive feature of the three university missions ranking is that, how it follows from its name, we use, aside from the traditional missions, which is education and science or research, we also consider the third mission, or the interaction with society, or in other words, a usefulness of a university to its own country.
А другая особенность нашего рейтинга заключается в том, что он опирается исключительно на объективные показатели. Мы не используем экспертные оценки и опросы, поэтому рейтинг никак не зависит от текущей политической конъюнктуры.
Another distinctive feature of our ranking is that we use objective data only. We do not use expert surveys or polls, and this makes our ranking completely independent of actual political agenda.
Рейтинг очень хорошо зарекомендовал себя, и поэтому на его основе мы разработали целое семейство рейтингов, о котором тоже сегодня коротко расскажем. Это Московский международный рейтинг, о котором главное наше сообщение, рейтинг 100 лучших российских университетов. По ним мы имеем более полную информацию, чем по университетам других стран мира, поэтому это более точный инструмент для оценки конкурентных позиций лидеров российского образования. Далее это локальные рейтинги российских университетов. В них смогли принять участие практически все российские вузы, находящиеся в любом регионе. Однако не для всех из них приемлемы критерии международного уровня, поэтому пришлось выделить отдельную группу рейтингов и предметные рейтинги.
Our ranking was highly evaluated. That is why we've developed a whole family or ecosystem of rankings, about what will be the presentation later. But I will mention the rankings in short. First of all, of course, the Moscow International University ranking, which will be the main subject of our presentation. Then there's the ranking of the top 100 Russian universities, and this is where we have much more data than about the universities from the other world. That is why this is a more precise instrument for evaluating competitive positions of the leaders of Russian education. Then there is local Russian university rankings, where practically all Russian universities had a chance to participate. However, not all criteria are applicable for this ranking for universities from other countries. And finally, there is subject rankings.
Все наши рейтинги основаны на едином подходе. Это оценка трех миссий университета. И другое отличие, о котором я уже сказал, это приоритет объективных показателей. Поэтому их результаты сопоставимы между собой. Они не совпадают, но они сопоставимы. Однако для каждого из этих рейтингов, в зависимости от специфики, используется свой набор критериев и их настроек.
All these rankings that have been mentioned are based on one common mindset and approach. First of all, it is the evaluation of the three missions of a university and the priority of objective data. That is why the results of our rankings are comparable among each other. However, every ranking depends on its specifics and has its own set of criteria and indicators.
Теперь я хочу передать слово Ксении Зиновьевой. Она сделает основной доклад о рейтинге 3 миссии университета и расскажет коротко о других рейтингах семейства. После этого все желающие могут задать вопросы через чат, как удобно, на русском или на английском языке. Ксения, вам слово.
Okay, so now we will go to the main presentation. Afterwards, you will have a chance to ask questions. You might do it via the Zoom chat. Both English and Russian questions are fine. Today, we will be talking about trends and features of the 2022 edition of the 3 University Missions Ranking Ecosystem. Okay. Few words about us. Our specialization is university rankings, of course, and we publish over 50 rankings per year. Besides, we do non-credit ratings, we perform studies of industries and markets. Besides, we organize events based on analytical activities. This means we host conferences, webinars, roundtables, and another important event we organize is the annual University Symposium, The Future of Higher Education, which is the #1 platform for discussions on issues related to higher education in post-Soviet space. Our rankings are audited by IREC Observatory, and we actively cooperate with the Ministry of Education and Science of the Russian Federation and the Russian Union of Rectors. And last but not least, we are the co-founders of the Association of Rating, Ranking, and Other Performance Evaluations Makers, which is the operator of our international ranking. Here you might see our history. That first was the Reichs-100 rating, ranking of the top 100 Russian universities. It is supported by the Russian Union of Rectors, and it has to be said that this is, to date, the only domestic university ranking with an IREC-approved certification. So you might see we also do subject rankings, research area rankings, special rankings, but another very important ranking of ours is the Moscow International University ranking, which is audited by PwC, the world's leading audit and consulting firm. And since our rankings follow the same mindset and mission, the decision has been made to incorporate them into an integral ranking ecosystem. You might see its composition here on the slide, and I will say a few words about it. So there are two axes. One displays geography of the ranking, the other the ranking basis. So you see there's global world level, Russia level, and Russian regions. And then there are special rankings, institutional and subject rankings. And as for today, all main elements of the ecosystem have been created. They are on the slide, and most of them are released on annual basis and might supplement each other. That makes it an ecosystem truly. The scope of the project is truly vast, since it aspires to cover the whole world of global higher education. Now, a few words on each of the rankings. First of all, the Moscow International Ranking. It provides assessment of the strongest Russian universities in global context, but not only them. It's based on objective data from independent and remotely accessible sources, and therefore its development does not depend on the current agenda or political constraints. And it provides adequate assessment of trends in global higher education. Then there is the Reichs-100 ranking of Russian university, which allows us to find and define precise position of Russian leading universities in the ranks. It's based on the same methodology as the international ranking, but uses additional data available only in Russia, because every country has its own specification. Now there's local rankings of university, which assesses all university in the country, their position in global competition. Also the same methodology, but special criteria for regional universities and niche universities. And finally, the Russian university subject ranking, which focuses on the role and importance of any university for society, country, and region. And today it is the only tool to assess all Russian universities in 29 subjects, but in the future we want to expand this list up to 60. As mentioned before, all rankings of the ecosystem are united under one mission and share common features. The main idea is that every Russian university should be able to receive an adequate assessment in line with its own mission and regardless of the political agenda. This makes the ranking ecosystem a unified national tool for independent and comprehensive assessment of all Russian universities, according to their mission as well as historical and geographical features. Almost all rankings of the ecosystem are using only objective data, as said before, from independent sources, so the risk of data manipulation is minimized, and the ranking results themselves are verifiable. Besides, all rankings are based on the views of stakeholders. Its methodologies and results are discussed in key communities on a regular basis. But the main distinctive feature, as already been said before, is the assessment of all three missions of a university, which is education, science, and impact on society. You might see the ranking model here on the slide. A few words about each of the three ranking factors. The first group indicators measures the quality of education, is the education group. It also measures the conditions for receiving quality education and usually has the greatest weight. The second group measures research and science, and the third one measures a university's impact on societies, or in other words, a university's usefulness for its country or region. With this approach, the three missions have set a new line, a new generation, a new criteria for development of rankings in the world. And of course, there's quality assessment, and the quality of our rankings has undergone an extensive audit on multiple levels, nationally and internationally. There's PVC, there's IRAC, and an International Expert Council. And the quality and methodology of our rankings have been discussed at more than 20 international forums with participation of several thousand rectors. As for quality monitoring on national level, there is the Working Group on Strategic Academic Leadership of the Russian Union of Rectors, which regularly monitors the quality of the ranking and sets priorities for its development. And the rankings have been approved, this is very important, by and recommended for practical use by the Ministry of Education and Science of the Russian Federation. And last but not least, we have at least 30 native-speaking freelancers engaged in our projects that collect primary information. Now, a few words on the application of the rankings of the ecosystem. There are three levels: university level, national level, and international level. For university, it is used for university positioning and promotion, managerial decision-making, competitive procedures. There is a criterion for selecting partners for joint programs and exchange, and quality criterion for supporting teaching and research initiatives. Then there is the national level, which is represented by federal law. So our rankings are incorporated in Russian federal law, and there are two laws. One defines the criterions for the inclusion of foreign educational organizations into the list of foreign organizations which degrees and programs are recognized by the Russian Federation. And the second law provides motivation for local authorities to develop local universities. On international level, rankings are one of the tools for selecting Russian universities when sending students to study abroad. and identifying potential partners from Russia within the framework of developing academic and scientific cooperation. Now, it is very good that we have an application on all these levels, but there's also a practical application, and this is where we have developed a special instrument, which is the Database Management System, DBMS. It is very important because in preparation of our ranking, we collect information about more than 2,000 universities on international level and more than 700 universities on Russian level. So to store and process such amounts of information, a special BMS has been created, which allows to compile certain sets of information, which allows to prepare reports and analysis on competitive positions of universities. This DBMS allows to form benchmarks for universities and even higher education systems of entire countries. Therefore, all ranking data is available in a publicly accessible DBMS that can be used by universities, authorities, and professional associations. This is how this DBMS looks like. Okay, since we have passed the introductory part of the presentation, now we will take more in detail the rankings of the ecosystem, and we will begin with the Moscow International University ranking. You might see its position on our ecosystem here on the slide. So it is a global ranking, global institutional ranking. We will go into detail. Now, the history of this ranking is shown here. So rankings are instruments for defending national interests, but the global community is not satisfied with the existing set of rankings because they're based solely on bibliometrics and expert surveys, where each country has its own specifics. So in 2014, it was decided to develop a Russian International University ranking, and the Russian Union of Rectors have initiated the creation of a new global ranking with its headquarters in Russia. And the Association of Ranking, Rating, Other Performance Evaluations Makers is the operator of this ranking. So the pilot issue of the ranking was 2017, and today we have the 6th edition already. The Moscow International University ranking has set a new dimension in the world of educational rankings, because in addition to education research, it assesses the 3 university missions, and the main being the university's impact on society. And this very new generation of rankings meets the expectations of many countries, especially because it is so poorly assessed by other rankings. You might see it here. And speaking of international context, international experts have highly evaluated the quality and purpose of the International University ranking, noting the importance of measuring a university's impact on society and emphasizing that our ranking has truly paved the way for rankings of a new generation. And the ranking has been supported by international experts on the stage of its creation, and the ranking has been widely discussed in Russia and abroad, and the presentation took place in more than 15 places all over the world. To name a few, it's Belgium, Hungary, India, and Japan. So the ranking model is traditional for the whole ecosystem. Education, science, and university and society. You might see it on the slide. And I would like to note in the 3rd mission, University and Society, such a criteria as the number of alumni with an article about them on Wikipedia. This is, in our view, an important point because if an alumni is in Wikipedia, this means he or she has impact on society, means the impact on society by the university has been done. But university don't appear like this on the rankings, so there is a pre-selection procedure, and the main aim of the participant list is to ensure the widest possible representation of the most successful universities from all over the world. So there are three sources. One is the base national universities according to the IREC list. Another source is universities' positions in global rankings. And then there is leading universities by scientific performance. These three sources make up our shortlist. You might see the data here. And out of the shortlist, then the top 1,800 universities have been selected from 103 countries. The question rises, why 1,800? Because last year we had 1,650. And the answer is simple. The number of universities in the ranking is determined by the quality of available data. And this year, the quality and scope of data clearly improved. So compared to last year, this allowed us to increase the number of universities. So our ranking is the most representative among international academic rankings. And as for the geography of the latest edition, so you might see there is 3 leader countries by the amount of universities. It's USA, China, and Russia. And I have to say a few words about the main beneficiaries of the expansion of the list. You see it's Asia, Russia, and mainland Europe. But it is very important that almost a half of the new entrants to the ranking are universities from BRICS countries. So they are beneficiaries of the expansion first and foremost. Here you might see the how many universities from economic unions have participated in our rankings. So we see a very high representation of them, especially from BRICS countries. And of course, we will show you the top 30 of our ranking. The top 5 remained in their positions. The movements of other universities are demonstrated by the green and red arrows. So green means getting up in the ranks, red means going down. Of course, Russia is, of course, important. That is why here you might see the top Russian universities of the latest Moscow edition. And as you might see, Russia is very high in the ranks. It's rank 18 for the Lomonosov Moscow State University. And it's also number 1 in Russia. Speaking of which, since Russia is strongly represented in the ranking, we have to say a few words about its strong points and its competitive positions. So, as you might have seen, Russia is among the top 3 global universities with 146 universities represented in the international ranking. Besides, it's for the first time that universities from more than half of the federal Russian subjects are represented in the list. So the competitive position of Russia's leading universities corresponds to places 5 to 6 in the world. And the strongest point of Russian higher education is the quality of education. So even 5 Russian universities are in the top 100 in the ranking for the education indicator group. We have to mention competitive advantages, but negative factors too. And as you might see, we are very good in the large number of wins at student contests. We have a large number of MOOCs and a high share of international students, but we are relatively low on funding. We are relatively low on scientific paper citations, low staffing, and the communication with society is also rather low. You might see the strengths and weaknesses demonstrated graphically, and it has to be said that the 2021 ranking included 1,650 universities, so this data set was used for comparison. So this was what we had to say about the international ranking. I will remind you what we were talking before. The Moscow International University ranking represents Russian and other universities, global universities, and the scope of the whole world. But of course, since Russia is very important for us, we have to consider not only Russia's position on a global level, but also Russia for Russia. So next, we will speak about Reichs100, the top 100 Russian universities. It is here, its location on our ecosystem. So you see it's, of course, Russia and institutional level. So it is the most reliable and highly quoted list of leaders in Russian higher education. And it has been released annually since 2012. And it has been the 11th issue this year. And as said before, it is the only domestic university ranking with an IREC-approved certification. And it is a most comprehensive approach in evaluating competitiveness with 40 plus criteria. The ranking methodology is developed by the support of the Russian Union of Rectors. And to put it shortly, Reichs100 represents the Russian university elite. The main ranking question is, which higher education institution provide graduates with high-quality knowledge, skills, and competences based on the conditions for acquiring them and the results of the application? You might see the traditional ranking model with 3 missions, but there is one distinctive feature, and this is in the mission of university and society. We consider the graduate employment rate, since it is very important for Russia itself to have good graduates from good universities, meaning this is really the elite of Russian higher education. Data sources are more or less the same for all rankings, but there are also distinctive data sources, such as in this case, the websites of employing companies, including Russia's largest companies from the Reichs 600 list. This is another ranking we do. And since graduate employment is very important, has been emphasized, we use data from the Ministry of Education sites on this point. And our reputational criteria are based on polls and surveys, and they are provided by reference groups on our rating review portal. You might see the address below. Now we move to the top 20 of the Reichs100, and you might see the ranking is topped by the Lomonosov Moscow State University, which is also the #1 Russian university in our international ranking. It has remained its position since last year. And we have been talking about international rankings. This has been the speech about the Reichs100. I will remind you, this represents the elite of Russian universities, but since we want to cover the whole picture of higher education in Russia and the world, we also need to consider universities that are not in the top 100. So that's where local rankings come in, based on the federal subjects of Russia. There are 8 of them, so that we might consider all Russian universities. So local rankings independently assess the performance of a wide range of regional and specialized universities based on the realization of their educational and scientific potential, as well as impact on social environment. And special attention is paid to the conditioning of high-quality staff and regional significance of the university, so that some criteria that are traditionally for global rankings, such as scientific publications, citations, international integrations, are given less weight. And it is to be noted, it is very important that national leaders from the international ranking and Reichs100 are excluded, because we want to look at all Russian universities that have not been marked by our other rankings. The ranking model is once more the traditional one with education, research and science, and university and society. And here you might see the criteria used for each of the missions. There are quite many criteria. And as for the data sources, there are two distinctive sources, such as student competitions, such as I Am a Professional or Young Professionals, and All Russian Student Olympiads. Here you might see how many universities from various federal districts are in the local rankings. And in 2021, a total of 327 universities from various Russian constituent entities were included in the 8 local rankings by federal districts. You might also see the amount of students for each of the federal districts. And now we move to how the regions are represented. I mean, how universities from the regions are represented, and it is clearly dominated by Moscow and St. Petersburg. And here you might see how the top 3 in the local rankings are. So it's for the Far Eastern Federal District, Volga, and other districts as well. I will remind you once more that in this ranking we did not include the leaders of the Moscow International University ranking and Rakes 100. Now we have covered all the universities in Russia on institutional level, but we also need to look how universities perform in special areas and special subjects. This is also very important considering the various specializations of various universities. And the subject rankings answers the ranking question on which universities provide best educational and scientific instruction in a particular subject area, considering the contribution of universities to the social development. And you might see there are 29 subject areas grouped by larger groups such as mathematics, engineering, health and life sciences, social sciences, education, and humanities. And as have been said in the introduction, we plan to increase the subject area by 60. And once more, the ranking model, traditionally for our ecosystem, it's education, research, and society. And here you might take a look at the weights of all the missions, and it differs for each of the subject areas because, for instance, humanities focus more on education than on science, in comparison with mathematical and natural sciences. And for instance, in medicine, the picture is again different, where science and society are even. Education is given a little bit more weight. Also, numerous criteria for all the 3 missions. And the data sources, also the distinctive data sources are highlighted. You might see it's the Class Central MOOC aggregator and Open Education Platform. Also, we use data for this rankings from the All Russian Olympiad of Students. Another distinctive feature of the subject rankings is that we use medal count here, so how much bronze, silver, and gold medals they are, and the total of medals. And here you might see that the Lomonosov Moscow State University leads once more by the total amount of medals and gold medals. You might see the top 10. And here are the top universities by number of subject rankings where the university is represented, and the constellation is a little bit different, with number 1 being the Ural Federal Universities, which means that this university prepares students in 21 fields. But if we move back to the leaderboard by first ranking corresponding subject areas, we see that the Lomonosov Moscow State University is once more number 1. You might see how many first ranks and corresponding subject areas it has here. So, we have told you everything about the 4 rankings that I highlighted on this slide. So I will remind you once more. First, we have been talking about the Moscow International University ranking. It's Russian universities in the world and global universities. It's institutional ranking. Then we moved one step lower. We regarded the elite of Russian universities within Reichs 100. Then, on the level of local rankings, we looked at the University of Russian regions from the 8 federal districts of Russia. And finally, we were taking a look at which Russian universities perform best in certain subject rankings. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have questions, you might ask them in the chat, and we will be happy to answer them.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Мы рады, что наш чат не пустует, и в нем достаточно много вопросов касающихся экосистемы наших рейтингов. Попытаемся на них ответить.
So, we will be ready to answer the questions that are provided.
Вопрос Светланы Федоровой. Здравствуйте, публикуемая часть рейтингов ежегодно расширялась. Планируете ли вы расширять число университетов в рейтинге в следующих выпусках?
Okay, the first question is from Svetlana Fedorova. All these years, the published ranking list of the 3 missions was expanded, and is there a plan to expand it any further?
Нет, мы считаем, что в настоящее время рейтинг достиг оптимального числа участников, тому есть 2 причины.
No, we think that up to today we have reached the optimum number of participants, and there are 2 reasons.
В презентации Ксении был слайд, который демонстрировал качество собираемых данных по нашему рейтингу. И на этом слайде мы видели, что к концу 2000 университетов качество данных существенно ухудшается.
Okay, and the presentation, there have been a slide on the quality of data, and we have seen that after 2000 universities, by the count of universities, the quality of data significantly decreases.
Вторая причина заключается в том, что по нашим наблюдениям именно порядка 2000 университетов ведут международный характер своей деятельности.
And the second reason of the non-expansion of the list is that approximately 2000 universities conduct international activity.
Более широкий спектр университетов приведет к тому, что ряд критериев рейтинга просто перестанут работать. Это касается таких критериев, как международная библиометрия, участие в олимпиадах, международное сотрудничество.
Okay, so the thing is, if we expand the list any further, then a whole group of criteria will cease be important or cease be functional for the ranking. Such criteria as the international bibliometrics, Olympiads, and international participation.
Поэтому в ближайшем будущем главным акцентом нашей деятельности будет повышение качества тех данных, которые мы используем для составления рейтинга 1800-2000.
So in the years to come, the main priority of our ranking, the priority of development of our ranking, will be the improvement of data, the quality of data from 1,800 to 2,000 universities.
Следующий вопрос.
Next question.
Вопрос Егор Дорошенко. Здравствуйте. Существует ли возможность платного доступа к значениям, которые были определены для образовательной организации за 2022 год по критериям рейтинга 3 университетов?
Okay, is there a possibility, if this is a question from Dashenko, is there a possibility to access, acquire a paid access to the data of 2020, I believe, yes.
В презентации, которая сегодня демонстрировалась, несколько слайдов было уделено базе данных университетов. В этой базе данных доступны показатели тех университетов, которые включены в три миссии университетов. Но надо давать себе отчет, что по ряду причин мы не можем публиковать данные, то есть сырые данные, данные отдельных индикаторов, по ряду показателей данные представлены в производном виде, в виде баллов, которые можно сравнивать. Таким образом, доступ к базе данных дает возможность сравнивать позиции своего вуза с нужной выборкой университетов по стране, по направлению образования.
Okay, answering your question, there have been 2 slides dedicated to the DBMS, the Database Management System, which allows you to look on data about the 3 missions. But you have to note that we cannot publish raw data in this DBMS and publish certain indicators. So this DBMS is, of course, usable, but you have to keep in mind that it is used to compare the position of your university with a set of other universities.
Вопрос от Вероники Жутких. Есть ли у вас планы делать международные предметные рейтинги?
A question from Veronika Žukich. Do you plan on making international subject rankings?
Да, такие планы у нас есть. Еще в прошлом году мы заявляли о, по крайней мере, со стороны Российского союза ректоров и университетского сообщества был запрос на подготовку рейтинга, международного рейтинга при миссии университета по крупным предметным областям. Мы планируем подготовить такие рейтинги по 5-6 очень укрупненным областям знания, таких как гуманитарные науки, техническая сфера. Но надо иметь в виду, что изменение текущей обстановки вносит коррективы в наши планы, и затруднения с получением данных, в том числе от международных метрических баз данных, некоторая дискриминация участия российских вузов, например, в международных олимпиадах, заставляет нас корректировать временные планы реализации таких вот укрупненных международных рейтингов. Но мы надеемся, что в итоге мы это сделаем.
Okay. Yes, there is a plan on making national subject rankings. And last year, the Russian Union of Prefectures had an initiative to develop the 3 university missions with great research areas. And we are working currently to develop the methodology of these research areas. They are great research areas. We are planned to make 5 to 6 great research areas with such specializations like humanities, natural sciences, technical sciences. But there is this issue of the current agenda, which makes data acquiring difficult because there is this discrimination on the level of student olympiads. Besides, the scientometric data is now being acquired with great difficulties. So yes, we plan to do it, but we will see how the situation develops.
Вопрос от Ирины Ахметовой. Планируется ли изменение системы показателей деятельности университетов с учетом ограничения использования международных баз публикационной активности, социальных сетей, Википедия, которые распространены на вузы России?
Do we plan on changing or expanding the system of criteria of public citations and international publication activity Wikipedia and so on, based on the actual situation.
Ну, давайте я отвечу на этот вопрос. Дело в том, что большинство наукометрических показателей, они берутся не за один последний год, а за несколько лет. Как правило, это 3-4 года, в некоторых рейтингах до 5 доходит. То есть мы берем более длинный период. И изменения в рамках одного периода здесь не скажется на рейтинге. То есть мы еще сможем по прежней методике работать как минимум 1-2 года.
Mm-hmm. So, saying words about Scientometrics, it has to be noted that Scientometric data is not taken from one last year, but rather from a period of past years. So it's kind of retrospective data. And this entails that the change in one period won't affect the methodology or the outcome of the ranking.
Но это не значит, что мы расслабились, мы ищем альтернативные критерии, и такие критерии есть по работе. Ну, например, это критерии, связанные с денежным объемом выполняемых работ. Это критерии, связанные с другими источниками наукометрической информации. Я думаю, что в течение года мы критерии проработаем.
But we are looking for alternatives on acquiring Scientometrics, and we are developing alternative criteria, for instance, funding or the amount of money. We are looking for other sources of Scientometric data, and we think that within 1 year we will have these alternative criteria ready and we will use them.
Вопрос от Ольги Красниковой. За какой год будут использоваться данные о количестве студентов, преподавателей, объемах финансирования в следующем рейтинге по эмиссиям?
Okay, the next question, on which year will we use the data on the quantity of students, teachers, staff, and the funding volumes in the next 3 missions ranking?
Дистанционный характер сбора данных предполагает наличие существенного лага между годом выпуска рейтинга и годом используемых в нем данных.
Okay, the remote procedure of acquiring data sees and has a lag between the ranking that is being published this year and the data that is being collected.
Как правило, мы опаздываем на 2 года рейтинга.
Usually we lie behind for 2 years.
Поэтому в выпуске 3 миссии университета 2023 года будут использоваться данные по 2020 финансовому году, и 2020-2021 году учебного и 2020-2021 учебного года.
Okay, we usually lie behind for 2 years, so in the 2023 ranking, we will use data from the 2020 financial year and the 2020 or 2021 university year.
Вопрос от Михаила Перушкина. Участие в рейтинге 3 миссии осуществляется только по приглашению или можно участвовать через подачу заявки, как в 100 лучших вузов РАЭКС?
The question from Mikhail Perushkin. Is the participation provided or possible only through invitation or by submitting any, how do you say it, any documents?
Характер сбора информации для участия в рейтинге дистанционный, поэтому он не требует как специальной заявки или выполнения анкеты для участия в рейтинге.
The remote character of data acquisition sees no necessity in applying or no applications or invitations whatsoever.
Однако для российских вузов, представленных в числе 100 лучших вузов России, или хотя бы предоставление анкеты для участия в этом рейтинге, является основанием для включения в шорт-лист рейтинга комиссии университета.
However, for the Russian universities, there is a criterion for entering the ranking, and that is if they are in the ranks 100, they need to provide an application in order to be included in the remissions shortlist. Okay, we have a question in English. It is, здравствуйте. Как вы можете оценить научные достижения определенных международных университетов и каков источник этих данных? I will say it in English too, so that everybody hears it. Hello, how can you evaluate the scientific achievements of certain international universities, and what is the source of the data?
Научные достижения университетов оцениваются в рейтинге, в том числе на основании их достижений в библиометрических показателях.
So the scientific performance of certain universities, international universities, are covered by the criterion, which is in our ranking, by the bibliometric criterion.
До сих пор в предыдущие годы мы активно сотрудничали с крупнейшими международными провайдерами наукометрических баз данных, в частности, компанией Clarivate Analytics.
In the past years, we had a strong partnership with international companies, bibliometric companies such as Clarivate.
Сейчас времена изменились, но, как сегодня уже было отвечено в ходе ответов на вопросы, мы рассматриваем наукометрические показатели за существенный интервал времени, как правило, это 5 лет. Поэтому потеря 1 года от науки не окажет существенного влияния на позиции этого рейтинга.
But as we have already answered one of the questions, the times have changed now. But we have, when collecting scientometric data, we are collecting data for one period, for instance, 5 years. So the loss of data for 1 year won't affect significantly the outcome of the ranking.
Одновременно с этим мы рассматриваем возможность диверсификации системы показателей, которые отражают в том числе и научные достижения университета.
Simultaneously, we want to diversify the scientometric data of the universities, which we are collecting.
В частности, мы рассматриваем возможность использования стоимостных показателей объемов научной активности университета на бюджетах НИОКов.
And at the same time, we want to regard the funding criteria of funding positions, such as the research budget and so forth of a university. We want to consider it in our ranking too.
Да, спасибо, уважаемые коллеги. Мы ответили на большую часть вопросов. Презентация будет уже выложена в чате, поэтому можно свободно скачать. Спасибо вам.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for participating. We have answered the majority of your questions. As you might see in the chat, we have put the presentation there, so you might download it free. And thank you very much. So.
Да, и я тоже хочу присоединиться. Благодарю всех за участие в нашем вебинаре. Презентация, как я уже сказал, выложена в чате, и она будет размещена на сайте проекта. Там же будет размещена видеозапись сегодняшнего вебинара, его можно будет еще посмотреть. Ну и если у вас возникнут вопросы, можно будет написать по почте, которая тоже есть на сайте проекта. Сайт проекта mosur.org. Moscow International University Ranking.org.
Okay, thank you once more. And as I've said before, the presentation is already in the chat, but it will be available too on our website, on the Mosur website, as well as the video of this webinar. And if you have questions, you might write them out onto the contacts that are provided in both the presentation as well as on the website. And the website of our project is moseur.org, like Moscow International University Ranking.org.